In 1986, 15 children boarded a school bus for a field trip and were never seen again. No crash, no wreckage, but nearly 40 years later, the bus was found, buried deep in the woods. It was empty, except for one survivor. And what she remembered was a terrifying truth about where they went. This is the chronicle of the class that never came back. The fog settled thick over H. Halstead County like a lid no one dared to lift. It clung to the pines, curled under porch lights, and silenced the sound of tires on asphalt. You could drive a whole mile and not realize you passed your own childhood. That's how memories vanished around here, quietly and without protest. It was just past 7 a.m. when the call came. Deputy Sheriff Lana Whitaker had just poured her first coffee when the dispatch crackled through a possible discovery out by Morning Lake Pines. A construction team had unearthed what they thought was a school bus, plates matching a long-closed case. I stood frozen in the silence of my kitchen, the coffee mug warming my palm, my other hand reaching automatically for the notepad. But I didn't need to write it down. I knew the case by heart. 15 children, one bus driver, vanished in 1986. They were students from Holstead Ridge Elementary. My school, my grade, my classmates. I'd been homesick that day with chickenpox, and for nearly 40 years, I'd carried that small, strange guilt. The sheer luck of survival, like a splinter beneath my skin. I slid the untouched coffee into the sink, grabbed my keys, and left without locking the door. The drive to Morning Lake was quiet and slow, the fog dulling sound and stretching time. I remembered the photos in the yearbook, smiling faces pressed against the bus windows. I remembered their cartoon backpacks, their disposable cameras. I remembered them all. When I arrived, the construction crew had cleared a perimeter. The yellow of the bus was visible beneath the mud, dull, cracked, and half-crushed. It was a terrifying sight. A monument unearthed from a shallow grave. They had cleared one side, enough to open the emergency exit. A sour, earthy smell hung in the air, but the bus was empty. The seats were still in place. A pink lunchbox on the floor, a child's shoe on the back step, but no bodies. That absence made it worse. A hollow monument. Taped to the dashboard, I saw a class list, and at the bottom, a message scrawled in sloppy red marker. We never made it to Morning Lake. I stepped back out of the bus. The air colder now. They were supposed to be gone for 2 days. Instead, they never came back. And now, after nearly 4 decades, the bus had returned without them. But someone had been there long enough to leave behind a message. The old H. Halstead County records book. It smelled of mildew and lemon cleaner, its fans spinning lazily. I retrieved the case box. Field Trip 6B, Holstead Ridge Elementary, May 19th, 1986. Inside were Xeroxed class rosters, and at the bottom, a report stamped in red, missing persons, presumed lost, no evidence of foul play. That stamp had haunted the town. Everyone suspected there was more. I traced a finger over one face in the class photo. Nora Kelly. Wide green eyes, a missing tooth. Nora had lived 2 houses down from me. The photo made my chest ache. Just then, Deputy Harris burst in. Sheriff, you need to see this. 15 minutes later, we were at the hospital. A woman had been found half a mile from the dig site, dehydrated, malnourished, barely conscious. The nurse handed me a clipboard with a name written in trembling handwriting. Nora Kelly. My knees nearly buckled. I entered the room. Her hair was tangled, her face drawn, but those eyes were unmistakable. Nora, I whispered. She blinked. You got old, she whispered, a tear sliding down her cheek. You had chickenpox. You were supposed to come too. I felt my throat close. Who told you no one would remember? I asked gently. She looked out the window, then turned back, her voice a whisper. We never made it to Morning Lake. She remembered the bus driver, not the usual guy, and a man waiting at a fork in the road who told them the lake wasn't ready for us yet. He got on the bus. Then silence. She woke up in a barn, but it was like a home, with covered windows and clocks that were all wrong. They always said it was Tuesday, she whispered, even when it wasn't. They wouldn't let us talk about before. We had to use new names. That night, I sat alone in my truck outside the old barn. I remembered Nora's description, the clocks, the boarded windows. This barn belonged to a man named Frank Avery, who died in 2003. His son, Martin Avery, was the last known address. I stepped out of the truck. Something glinted near the base of the wall. A small, faded purple plastic bracelet. Kimmy Leon, one of the 15th. The past wasn't whispering anymore. It was screaming. Inside the station, I dialed the missing and unsolved cold case unit. I couldn't sleep with ghosts pressing in at the windows. By sunrise, the dig site was buzzing. We found a photo wedged behind a panel in the bus. A group of children in front of a low wooden building. On the back, written in marker, The Chosen. Year 2. That meant they had been held for longer than I dared imagine. I cross-referenced the names and found a man, Aaron Devlin, one of the missing children, now 49, living alone. "I remember you," he said softly when I found him. "You used to wear braids. Why didn't you come forward?" I asked. "Because not everyone wanted to leave," he replied. "I was the one who stayed when others tried to escape, the one who helped them keep order. But then, things changed. After year 4, the group splintered. He said he knew where the younger ones were sent after the fires, a second sanctuary called Haven. 2 hours later, I stood at the crest of a ridge, partially camouflaged by moss, stood a concrete structure built into the hillside. No signs, no path, only a steel door rusted at the hinges. Inside, behind a bricked-over door, we found a room called the Garden. The walls were covered in tallies and names, and beneath the dust, we found a small recorder. On the tape, a small, weak voice. "This is Kimmy. If anyone finds this, don't believe them when they say we ran away. We were taken." Nora heard the tape and whispered, "She's alive." The final tunnel, discovered using codes in Kimmy's journal, led us to her. A woman barely alive, clutching a leather-bound notebook. Her name was Kimmy Lang. The network of criminals who ran the cult had simply evolved. Their families now serving as mayors, judges, and police chiefs. Aaron, who helped me, said he had to leave the area because he heard whispers of other towns, other kids. The case made national headlines. But others like Nora, Kimmy, and a girl named Maya, another survivor found later, had a different goal: to start a foundation for lost children. On a warm spring morning, I returned to the lake. A small wooden sign now stood at the edge of the dock, in memory of the missing. To those who waited in silence, your names are remembered. I knelt and placed a Polaroid beneath the sign, and then I stood, because there were others out there, and maybe, just maybe, some of them were still waiting.